Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 edition of the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. I'm Michaela Almendoz, the Admin and Distribution Assistant at FilmCo. This year, we had an abundance of films and industry events that consisted of masterclasses, workshops, presentations, panels, talks, info sessions like this one, and a new discussion series entitled Artsy Veterans. We also still have Q&As and we'll be live with the filmmakers on Instagram. So please be sure to check out our website or social media pages to find all the events or films that you might be interested in. Today, I'd like to welcome you to the FilmCo info session, TT Production Rebate. There are many reasons productions choose to shoot their films in Trinidad and Tobago, but one of the most beneficial elements of filming in TNT is the Production Expenditure Rebate Programme offered by the Trinidad and Tobago film company, FilmTT. This program can save producers money by offering significant cashback percentages to both local and international producers. In this 1-hour session, FilmTT's facilitation officer, Regina Seabrun, will explain the different rebate program tiers, which types of productions qualify, which production expenses qualify, how to calculate rebates, how to apply for the rebate, and everything in between. So Regina Seabrun is a creative arts professional with over 7 years of experience in stage and production management. She gained a solid background in communication studies and theatre from UWI's Department of Creative and Festival Arts. As FilmTT's current facilitation officer, she manages the administration of the Production Expenditure Rebate Programme and the company's film commission work, and oversees the facilitation of a diverse range of productions that have been shot on location in Trinidad and Tobago in recent years. So without further ado, I will now hand you over to our facilitator, Regina.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the info session. Welcome to the 2021 edition of the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. On behalf of FilmTT, I am very pleased to be here today and to be walking you through how to apply for our rebate. So as Michaela said, thank you for that introduction. My name is Regina Seabrun. I have been the facilitation officer at FilmTT since 2018. And I have had the pleasure of seeing how the rebate and how FilmTT and Creative TT, our parent company, has been able to help our film industry grow and to provide opportunities for good business management and understanding of incentives and how those can assist in getting creative work done. So today we're going to go through how to apply for the rebates, how to, figure out the little things that just make a rebate application sing and to make the process as smooth as possible. So first of all, what is the rebate about? So, and also why a rebate? So the rebate is split into two different categories. There is the incentive for international productions and as well as for local productions. So first of all, the rebate is Trinidad and Tobago's premier film and audiovisual industry incentive, right? And it was created in 2006 via cabinet approval, and it renews every 3 years. So it expires in December 2021, and it will be renewed for another 3-year period. FilmTT administers the rebate on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. We don't own the rebates, and that's a common misconception that we do clear up. So we administer the rebate on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Right? We also collaborate to do this work with the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, which is our line ministry, and other various stakeholders in the industry, like the Board of Inland Revenue, that comprises the rebate panel. So why the rebate as an incentive? Incentives are a key way to get productions to shoot at a location, and coincidentally, Trinidad and Tobago has the only cashback rebate in the Caribbean region. Other neighbors have to rely on other things for to attract productions, but we have the benefits of having this incentive, which is a cashback versus another type of incentive, such as a tax credit. So with the cashback rebates, but the way our one is structured, you get up to 35% of production expenditure and an additional 20% top up for hiring local labor. And for international productions, it's split into 3 different tiers. So we have the 12.5% for the budgets US 100,000 and up. We have the 15% cashback for budgets 300,000 and up. Could we get the little bigger? Let's get it. Right. Right. So again, just to wrap up in terms of why the rebate as an incentive. Rebates have been proven to benefit jurisdictions where they are hosted, in that if you have great, like Trinidad and Tobago, we have great culture, we have great beaches, we have scenery, we have so much richness to offer, so much diversity. But the addition of the rebates for a production's bottom line helps them get back something on the millions of dollars that they would come to Trinidad and Tobago to spend. So if you look at an example like Ireland, Game of Thrones is shot in Ireland, or one of the locations is Ireland, and they actually were able to expand elements such as the Irish Zoo. They have a display of a dragon, a stone dragon, of course, but they have a display of a dragon in the Irish Zoo, which is because they get so many visitors to the country based on the fame of Game of Thrones. So these are the kind of things that we eventually would hope to expand Trinidad and Tobago to accommodate, based on the strength of the productions that come here to shoot. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. How do you apply? So the rebate is split into 3 different phases. There's the provisional application phase, the completed application phase, the audit and approval, and the final stage is release of payment. So the provisional application stage, we can skip to the next slide. Right, so for the provisional application phase, it's very simple. You follow the checklist. Very, very simply, the documents outlining the checklist are exactly what you need before you start filming to access the rebate, right? So while you're compiling your provisional application checklist, I want you to think about 2 things, 2 very important things. Who is your target audience? Who are you making this film for? Have you identified who you want to see this film? What do you want them to get from it? How do you want them to feel about it? And secondly, I want you to think about where will your film be shown? Not just, and take that further, where do you want your film to go? It's great to think, okay, I could send to the film festival. That's fantastic, great option. But beyond that, what are your exhibition plans? I don't think we can take for granted what community screenings can do for a film, because the community that you made your film in could very well be the ones who want to see the fruits of your labor. So don't take for granted smaller community screenings, that's great. But before you even say action, and everybody's on set, and everybody in their costumes and all these fantastic set pieces and all these things, before you even get there, think about who's your target audience, who are you making your film for? You should also be clear on what genre is your film. So what genre does your film fall into? Because in the Caribbean, based on the research that FilmTT has been doing, the genres that are widely accepted, or maybe accepted is not the best word, the genres that are popular with our society are comedy. You know, we love to laugh. Comedy could also include, you know, the drama, the little bacchanal, family matters, romance. We love a good romance story. Culture, things that are culturally relevant, child-friendly, so animated pieces, even if it's not animated, kid-friendly pieces, and family-friendly content. So you're gonna have a PG to PG-13 rating. These are the things that you need to be very aware of before you start filming, because these will also help you understand, okay, does it make sense pursuing the rebates? There are many productions that, you know, we hear of that are absolutely fantastic, but they don't always meet the criteria. Either they're too short, they don't meet the budget cap. I mean, budget is, again, very important, and we'll get to that later, but think of who is this film for? Who is this project for? And where do I want it to go? So once you've thought about all those things, you could feel very free to visit our website, filmtt.co.tt, and we have uploaded all the rebate information to the website that you can easily access on your own. So the checklist, this checklist is here, the application forms, the rebate guide, the criteria documents, all these things are on our website, right? So we've thought about where we want our film to go. We've thought about who's going to watch it. We thought about what cinema is going to be in, which outdoor picnic, which drive-through it's going to be in. And now, what do we submit? How do we get past the provisional stage? So we submitted a completed application form. We'll run through one a little later. I took the liberty of filling one out that we could go through. We submitted a script and a synopsis. It says script/synopsis, but I think it's always a good idea to submit both, because when the general manager / film commissioner has the opportunity to even see the script, we could also see, okay, where else can we get involved? Can we help in connecting you to probably a script supervisor who can help you make the most out of this great story that you have? And then a synopsis also helps capture very quickly, and this is for people outside of the film community, what is your film about? So submit both of those things just to be safe. Your projected budgets. Now, with your projected budgets, do not underestimate the power of estimates. And yes, that sounds a bit strange, but I say that because filmmakers get overwhelmed by the idea of, okay, how much money am I going to spend on this film? And while, yes, you have to be a certain level of overwhelm, don't let it get to you. You are projecting realistically based on what you hope to spend, what you already have available to spend, and potential investment. So you're going to do a projected budget line by line. You're going to break down all the roles on set that you have so far and how much you're going to pay each of those people. You're going to break down how much it costs to design your sets, to pay for location fees. You're going to break down all these expenses, and it helps to have a first and second AD to assist with these things so that you are getting the most out of the paperwork. These are please hire the right people. Hire people who know how to do this paperwork for you, because it will make the final application and the audit process so much smoother. I'm telling you from experience, it will make your life and mine very, very easy in the end, right? So that's projected budgets. Don't be overwhelmed by it. If you need assistance or you need a template, feel free to reach out. We are happy to share and walk you through that process. Letter of intent to film on location. This is mostly for international productions, but for local productions, what you can do is submit a list of locations that you want to shoot at, and where FilmTT can help, we will assist with getting you connected to that location to use for your fulfillment. Alternative shooting schedule. This is important because we want to get a sense that you're not just applying to rebate because, it looks like a good time, and, let me just apply. Everything on this checklist has been curated to ensure that you and as well as us get the most out of this process and experiencing what it's like to put together proper production reports, right? So it must be clearly articulated. This is what we intend to do. This is where we intend to do it. And this is how, right? List of scenes to be shot in location. That could also go in with the letter of intent and the list of locations. If you don't know exactly, that's fine. But as much as you do know, feel free to include and submit even potential ones and let us know where you want to film and we could get involved. We're happy to be involved. So happy, right? Letter confirming that FilmTT will be credited. It's very simple. We have a letter template for this. Feel free to reach out and let us know if this is something you would like us to provide. Certificates of incorporation. Now, let's talk about certificates of incorporation, guys. The rebate panel is made up of personnel from BIR. And I don't mean the first floor, the second floor. I mean the top floors of BIR, right? Your rebate will not be signed off if everything is not in order. If you do not have a certificate of incorporation proving that your business is registered, that your production is registered, that you have paid your taxes, your rebate will not be signed off. And these are the final points that keep back sign off and keep back payment, right? So please organize your certificates of incorporation, provide a copy, and it will be stamped and signed. And your sources of funding. The sources of funding when you, by the time you apply for the rebate, you might not have every single source confirmed, but what you do have, please submit. So that's the whole point of the provisional stage. As much information as you have in advance, you submit and you clearly outline it. A file is created for you and for your production. So if you need to reference anything, if we need to reference something to make sure that you're in order, it's there. Be as thorough as you possibly can, because it will help all of us in the end, like I said. Also, again, this goes back to hiring an accountant to make sure that your affairs are in order financially, so that when you submit your rebates, you can easily be on your way. Cool. You submitted all these things, because it is checked. I go through everything page by page with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that everything is in accordance with the rebate criteria, right? So now that you've submitted your provisional documents and you've gotten your provisional certificates, next slide. Right, is there a maximum budget that qualifies? So no, there is no maximum budget. However, the cap per fiscal year is 8 million US, or 52 million TT. So far, nobody's reached 52 million TT. If you would like to get in touch with me, you link here. But the cap per fiscal year is 8 million US, right? So you have your provisional certificates. You're ready to start shooting. So what do you do next? Right? You need to figure out, does my format in accordance with the rebate? So I will tell you, there are people who have, gotten all their documents ready. They've submitted everything and they're like, yes, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to shoot. I'm ready to get my provisional certificate. And I'm like, hi, excuse. Did you check the list of formats? And I think this is also part of the, the education process, that you need to be aware of what are the criteria. So a lot of short form content is made in Trinidad, which is great. We have fantastic short form content being made, but shorts, unfortunately, do not qualify for the rebates. So features qualify. So on the screen here, we have a list of the formats that do qualify. So we have feature film. Please look at the time that we have listed next to it. We have 60+ minutes. A television movie, which is a TV hour. A dramatic television series or mini series. So you have the TV half hour or the TV 1 hour, 13 episodes or 13 hours is the max, right? As much as you can fit into that frame, please make sure you do. We have foreign commercials, local commercials do not qualify for the rebates. Foreign commercials, however, do. Documentaries, 60 minutes plus, and animations, which is 30 minutes plus, right? So ensure that you fit into this format before you fill out the application form and you compile all these documents and you come and tell me, I come to apply for the rebate. And then I have to tell you, well, you see, this is 40 minutes. If you can add an extra 20, that would be great, because then we could say, all right, cool, But please note, these are the formats that apply. Like I said, the rebate is governed by a cabinet minute. So FilmTT is not at liberty to change the criteria on a Tuesday or a Thursday. All right, next slide. Right, so what does not qualify? So I get these questions all the time. And that's why I think it was helpful to, kind of pull together what helps you qualify, right? So a single episode of a television series. One of the more frequent types of projects that we facilitate are one-off episodes. So as you all know, we did Amazing Race, that was 2 episodes. While the input was great, they don't qualify for the rebate because they didn't film the entire season here, right? So something that wouldn't qualify. A discussion program like Morning Edition, those things don't qualify. Current affairs like news, that's a no. A panel program, no. Variety program, no. Production of a public event, like, okay, so somebody decides they're filming the entire CPL tournament and they want to apply for the rebate using that. No, that does not qualify. A training or how-to program, how to apply for the rebate. So if we made a series on how to apply for the rebates and we put it on TTT, that would not apply because it's a training or how-to program, right? Anything that contains obscene or pornographic material or is offensive to generally accepted public morals. Please pay attention to that in particular. Things that are rated TVMA or not suitable for work will most likely be considered as not qualifying. This is not a personal slight or offense to mature content, because we are aware that that kind of content does get made, but bear in mind, again, this is a state program and we are a state agency, and as such we are guided by the ministry and the government of Trinidad and Tobago. So please bear in mind that that's kind of the reason for the formatting of some of these things, right? So that does not apply. So we went through what does apply, we have what does not apply. So now that you know, I look forward to the emails I'll get in my inbox saying that I'm ready to apply for the rebates. I got you. Right, next slide. What is a qualifying production? So here is where we get into a bit of the nitty-gritty on what qualifies. Now, for a local production, the ownership of the production needs to rest with the company because it's a Trinidad production, right? For international co-production, if a local company and a US-based or UK-based, whatever company, makes a production together, where does the ownership lie? So this document says, well, this slide says 25% of the ownership by the TNT production company. But we know that international companies are not so, how to put it, generous to part with rights. So what you can do is, once there's a written agreement between both parties stating that the rights of the company remain with the international production company, you can submit that, and that little section is waived. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but all entities involved must be willing to be on the same page when the rights and ownership are concerned. And once that is submitted in writing, FilmTT says, okay, cool, the production is owned by X. However, that does not change the fact that the rebate can only be paid to a TNT production company. So the money goes into a Trinidad bank account, paid to a Trinidad and Tobago production company, and then the disbursement of funds is agreed on between the companies involved in the co-production. Please note, FilmTT, and by extension, the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Trade and Industry, will not be paying rebates to international companies that are not registered in Trinidad and Tobago. And I say that because the question has been asked, so just to clarify, the rebate can only be paid to a Trinidad and Tobago company, a registered Trinidad and Tobago company, right? Production activity minimum for TNT production 50%. Most local productions shoot mainly here. We do have a few that, for whatever reasons, have shot in different parts of the world, whether they're based there, but 50% of the production activity should be done locally. For intellectual property, this is a big thing in terms of rights and chain of title. You can feel free to liaise with the Intellectual Property Office, which is a partner of FilmTT, in terms of protecting your intellectual property as far as the production is concerned. They are very helpful in that regard, and they know how best to guide you. But this is a very important component of applying and accessing the rebate successfully, right? The TNT crew requirement for local productions should be 100% local crew. If you have to bring in a DP or a camera operator, or even a producer or a director, most likely a director from abroad, that's fine. That you just have to let us know. But there are certain roles that will not be counted in the 20% labor. So just be aware of that when you're outsourcing certain roles, right? For the international co-production, they're not more lax, but it requires a bit more of a fine-tooth comb. So you just come and you discuss it with FilmTT, and we will find a way to keep everybody happy in terms of, okay, what qualifies, where do I fit, how much of this am I owed, right? Because our interest is the well-being of our stakeholders. Right, so next slide. Right, so what are qualifying production expenses? So the acronym for this is QTTPE, right? So this is one of the things that you calculate when you are calculating your rebates. And we'll get to that when we do the breakdown of the application form, right? So QTTPE is any money paid by the production to an entity registered in Trinidad and Tobago for categories of acquisition of licenses or copyrights, permanent acquisition or rental of physical goods, such as equipment, that kind of stuff, and acquisition of services. So hiring of crew, catering, editing, animation, these different things. All the things that make up parts of the production. And we have taken the liberty of outlining the categories and roles. It's not an exhaustive list that qualifies for the production. So in the next slide, we will have a breakdown of the different sections. So under development, we have almost everything that fits under development of the film that you can claim back on rebates. So you have purchasing, books, scripts, trademarks. So books, scripts, and music will be for like adaptations. An example would be Hamilton, or a local example, even better, Green Days by the River, which was adapted from the novel into a film. And in order to be eligible, the IP must satisfy original rules, right? So again, these are things you can clear up with the IPO office. They are very, very helpful in terms of understanding where does intellectual property fit in terms of getting production off the ground. And they work with us, like I said before. What is very important here? What is not eligible for the rebates in part of developmentals? So deferrals of payment. So if you paid $100,000 for the rights of a film, but you're paying it off in portions, you can't count that as part of the rebates. You have to hold that spend on your own. Like you can't recount that because it's going to be spread out, even if it's across a couple of years. Like you say, you're taking 3 years to pay off the ownership of this content because you wanna adapt it. You can't take that off, right? Deferrals and deferments, royalties on music, unfortunately, do not apply for the rebates. Again, this is not something that FilmTT has decided, and I say that because we are frequently asked, so why can't you all change that? And that's not really up to us. But unfortunately, these things can't be changed just like that. Profit participation or recourse on non-recourse loans. So if you are negotiating negotiating with another production in order to get the rights to the intellectual property, there are some costs. That's one of them that you're going to have to hold on your own. However, we do have a very long list of things that you can put towards the rebates. So don't be discouraged by the things that don't count. I know that the list of things that don't count could seem a bit unfair, but the list of things that does count is even longer. So you're in good hands, right? So next slide. For production expenditure, we have a long list of roles in different categories, roles and services that will count. And I think this list is very helpful in terms of understanding, okay, what can I claim back on, right? So it's separated into different categories. You have the production department, cinematography, art, physical effects, locations, post-production. So using this list, and there's more, there's still more, right? Using this list, you could break down the different services that you have that you can claim back on. And again, if you have any questions, please ask us. We are very quick to respond on things like this, especially when it comes to the rebates and understanding the finer details. I am available to answer any questions you may have, right? We could keep going. So after production expenditure, we have distribution, right? So distribution, we have pre-approved expenditure, production costs, creating trailers, marketing, commercials, content created on film and digital media. So I mean, CDs and DVDs are not really the main formats anymore. A lot of things are now on USB or digital on a private link. But where applicable, it's always good to have a DVD copy lying around. You never know with digital. So I would say to have a few DVD copies of your projects, even if it's like 4 or 5, just for safekeeping in the event that you do need it. I think it's a good idea to have these. Per diem and hosting, this is expenditure, again, incurred in Trinidad and Tobago. So if you fly in your DP or you fly in a director and you're housing them somewhere, you can't put that cost towards accessing rebates, right? Oh, and you see on the bottom there it says, in order to be claimed, all invoices and receipts for payments must be submitted along with the application. A very helpful thing to do is to scan and keep a digital copy of all these receipts so that you can submit them on file when you are submitting your application documents. Because a lot of these are final application, will come in, with your final application, which is much more weighty than the provisional application, because this is where you have to provide proof of all the things that you've estimated in the provisional phase, right? So you can move on to the next slide. Right. So what expenses don't qualify for the rebates? So this is an important slide, right? Because non-qualifying expenditure is the understanding of what this encompasses is important for figuring out when you're doing your budget or when you have your accountant doing your budget, what am I counting as QTCPE, which is the qualifying Trinidad and Tobago production expenditure, versus what doesn't qualify. So what does not qualify? Producer fees. So yes, I can hear the phantom calls of, that's not fair. Why not? But I'm sorry, producer fees are not counted. However, if the producer carries double roles, the compensation for the other role, not the producer role, the compensation for the other role must be clearly outlined, and that will count towards calculating rebates. What is helpful is to outline what the producer fee is, and then what the other role is that the same person is sharing, right? Just so that everybody's clean, everybody's on the same page, right? As you said before, advancements and services of loans, royalties, residuals, land and buildings. So if you buy a giant warehouse in, let's say, Chaguaramas to build a stage to hold a performance for your film, buying the building and the land on which the building stands does not count for the rebates. However, the set that you build inside of that building on that land will count. So let me repeat that, right? The land that the building sits on and the building that you buy to use for your production is not counted for the rebates. However, if you build a stage inside of that building and that is your set, or you build a ballroom or whatever, the cost of creating the sets will go towards the rebates, but not the building that it's housed in if you bought the building. Slightly unrealistic, but let's be prepared for any eventuality, right? So again, if you have questions on what does or does not qualify, or if it's a bit of a gray area, which is ironic because this is a gray page and a gray area, feel free to ask us and we can walk you through, okay, why does this not qualify? And how can you look at it differently so that you and your auditor has an understanding of where this falls in your rebate spend? Because you should still list it, but understand that it will not qualify, right? So next slide. Right, so pre-approved qualifying labor. So what is qualifying labor? So qualifying labor is labor services provided in connection with the different categories, so managerial, creative, artistic, technical aspects of creating your production. So the qualifying labor is where you get the additional 20% top up on the 35% that your rebate is calculated on. So there's a list of qualifying positions that we have here on the screen. So these are pre-approved. These are the guaranteed yes, these positions will be added and counted towards your 20% top up. And I will show you how we calculate the 20% a little later. But understanding that this list is not exhaustive is very important. Again, I will always repeat, if you have questions about what qualifies, please ask. Don't wait until you know you've completed the entire process and then say, oh, well, I didn't know I could have counted that, because we could have told you a little earlier, you know, yes, this is a qualifying rebate position, right? Next slide, please. Great. So as you see here, what is qualifying production labor? The rebate guide has been created to address many of the questions that we would have had. So we looked at the rebate process and we said, okay, what are questions that people might have about applying that instead of you calling or emailing to ask the question, where can you find the information for yourself? And that's how we came up with the rebate guide. So yes, we're going through it a bit slowly with a fine-tooth comb, but that's because the information presented here is for you to be as independent as possible in putting together your application, and then FilmTT steps in and says, okay, now that you've done the basics, here's how we can help, here's how we can clean it up and keep the process going. So next slide. Right, my favorite part. So here we have calculated, we filled out a rebate form to calculate for you, right? To show you an example of how to calculate rebates. So I'm just going to put it on the end as well so I can see it. All right, so let's go. Right, so this is for an international film, right? So you fill in your basic information, the international production company, all the information, the local production company fills in the information as well. And when you fill in the information, very important are your company number, right? Company number and the role of the applicant. Because whoever's name is on the production document, on the application form, sorry, that is the person who is treated as the owner of the production on behalf of an entity, or the person who is authorized to submit and sign off on the other documents, such as the letters in the production. So it's very important to keep in mind that whoever is filling out and signing as the applicant is aware of what the procedure entails. So this will be for a co-production. So we have the international production company, I just filled it in, and the local company. So I use my own name. The next slide is an example of a local production, a local film production. So instead of two company information, you just have the one for the local company, company number. So the company number must be clearly outlined here, as well as all contact information for the applicants, right? You also fill in your production details because this is estimated. If you don't know the length of set, you could put an average, but you need to say what kind of production it is, the format, because format is very important, because then that will tell us, going back to the eligible formats list that we went through, if you are meeting the criteria, right? And obtaining relevant approvals, and you submit proof of that if you have it, right? Next slide. Right, so here we have calculating of the estimated rebates. So here I have listed the estimated budget is 2 million. I just use general figures. So estimated 2 million, of that the qualifying expenditure is 1.8 million, and the portion of qualifying expenditure that's qualifying labor is, as we have here, 150,000. So what is the rebate? So how do we calculate? And okay, just before I go on, you see the section at the bottom here, distribution. These are tentative. So this is where I intend to exhibit my film. So we talked in the beginning about knowing where your film is going and who is going to see it. Film festivals are a great opportunity to get exhibition and to gather interest for your film. Feel free to list as many as you realistically can submit to or have begun the process of submitting to. even if it's just peaking interest at the point in time, right? So this is why I say before you fill out the document, please think about these things, right? So how to calculate estimated rebates, right? So next slide, please. Right, so I took the liberty of doing some math, not my favorite, but right. So like I said, ballpark figure, $2 million, everything was spent on location. This is our local production. So all $2 million was spent right here in Trinidad and Tobago. So you calculate your qualifying expenditure, which is the 35% flat. So we have 630,000, and the qualifying labor is 20% of the 630,000. Sorry, the qualifying labor in total you spent to hire labor for your production, your spend is 300,000. So out of that, you're calculating 20%. So this is where math kind of gets a little fuzzy. You're not calculating 20% of the 35. No, you're looking at your budget and you're taking the figure that you spent on labor, and out of that figure, you're calculating 20% to top up on the 35%. So then at the bottom here, we have the estimated rebate figure, which will be the flat 35 plus the 20% top up on the labor spend. So you get here, the estimated rebate is $690,000, right? So when in doubt, always know how to separate it, which is why when we're doing budgets, we encourage you all to very clearly outline what you spend line by line, because this will help you when you're calculating your estimated rebate. Don't worry if the estimated rebate is a bit high, because chances are by the time you actually spend money and you actually have your auditor and your accountant go through and say, okay, this is how much qualifies, because you will end up spending money on things that don't qualify. And that might take your rebate down, but that's a common occurrence. So don't be overwhelmed by the figure being out of reach. Most likely it will come down by the time you get to the final, right? So next slide. Once you've calculated this, we have the provisional certificate. So this is just a general example of what the provisional certificate looks like. This is issued by FilmTT. I will issue this to you, and I will provide a copy for you to keep on your file once you have submitted all documents. If you need this to be updated or to be renewed because it's valid for 6 months, all you have to do is send an email before the end date, and we will extend it for either 3 months or for 6 months based on when you shoot it. COVID has pushed back a lot of shooting, so we have had to renew a couple of provisional certificates. So it is very possible you don't even have to fill out the form again. Legit, just send an email and outline the particulars, say when you plan to shoot, or when you move any shoot to, and we will organize you, right? So now that you have gotten your provisional certificate and you filmed, right? We can read next slide. What you filmed, you've edited, you've shot, you've had your grand premiere. So what do we do now? What we doing? I've literally gotten okay, so my film has premiered. What do I do with it now? You submit your final documents. So this is, we went through a lot of the final details on what qualifies, what doesn't qualify, what is provisional labor. So you're going to take all that information and you're going to use it to submit your final application, right? And these are the 12 documents that you need to submit to us. So just, let me say it up front, you have to submit every single thing on this list, except a DVD copy. You can give me either a DVD or you could send me a flash drive, but I do need a physical copy of your film. But yes, you have to submit every single thing on this list, because when we have the rebate panel, we actually go through and check every single document to ensure that it is accurate and that it meets the criteria. Right, so let's go through what this entails, right? So first up, we have the completed application form is the same as the provisional, except you just change the estimated figures to final figures. Like this is for sure what I spent, because you have to provide evidence to back up what it is you would have submitted, right? So the next slide, we have a auditor's report template. So yes, you have to have your financials audited. Your auditor must be registered with ICAT and provide an ICAT number. If you need a referral or a list of auditors that have audited films in the past, please let us know and we can provide that information to you. An accountant alone is not enough. I have been asked. And I say these things because it's important to understand that the rebate is cash back on money you've already spent, but you get that money from the state. And in keeping with transparency and proper procurement and proper procedures, you have to be audited. Also, if it's not audited on your end, it's audited by the ministry. So either way, there's an audit. So there's a double audit. So do yourself the favor and engage with an auditor. We do have a couple of very good auditors that have worked on films in the past. They do very good work. They know what we look for. And the best way to make this process smooth is to have a clean audit. A clean audit will make life a clean audit and separating your bank funds will make your process so smooth because you don't have to then think about, okay, I got $10,000 from Oprah, but I don't know where I put it. Keep the auditing, keep the financials clean, and things will be in order, right? So this is auditor's templates. Next slide. Final budget information. Right, so this here is how accounting for where did the money come from. So has it been sponsored by any business or organization? You can provide letters. I know some people don't really like to share the investment information. You can redact it, but you can say this money was provided by XYZ or proof of some kind of sponsorship given. Just provide proof. Like I said, you can feel free to redact sensitive information if you wish, but the information stating that it has been given to this person or this company should be clearly stated. All sources of funds must be listed and provided separately. So here we have the issue of state funding. If you get state funded, you have to separate it in your budget sheet. So what I tell people to do is to do a estimated budget, which would have been from the provisional stage. So I estimated I would spend $1 million, and then an actual budget, and then it goes, oh, I actually spent $1.5 million. So let your auditor match those two columns. So you match your estimated and an actual budget, and then on a separate sheet, also include any funding or sponsorship you got from any state entity. Please note, any funding which you get from a state organization, and if you're not sure if they're a state organization, ask them, ask us, Google them, must be subtracted from the rebate calculation before you calculate how much you're going to get back. If you get your entire budget from the Ministry of Tourism, then obviously you can apply for the rebate. But you know, that kind of thing, you need to be very clear that any money you get from a state entity will not be given back to you in the form of the rebate. It will not be considered eligible. There are no if, buts, or maybes about that, which is why we ask it to be clearly outlined. And it has been right as well, you know, the money was spent here, it was spent in post-production, that's fine. It's state funded. If you get the money back from the government, you can't include government money in your calculation. Right? 2 + 2 is 4. Right? So any foreign persons or entities contribute. For this purpose, I just used things that I knew. Say what it is. Give details. If you have proof, such as a written agreement or even a letter stating, I, the South Korean embassy, hereby agrees to provide $500,000 towards this production on the condition that it will be screened at the embassy because it meets Korean cultural, whatever, things like that. You can provide that information. The more details, the better. This also helps with proof of distribution at the end, right? any non-cash contributions. So yes, you should really put this information in, because it also gives an idea of what are the other meaningful contributions to the production outside of cash. Cash is great, sponsorship is great, but in kind is also very good. Use of a space without having to pay location fees. If somebody offers their mansion for you to film a lavish party scene, include all those things. Because it also shows how the industry expands beyond the typical investor that cuts a check and says, hey, look, some money, right? These things are very important in terms of painting that bigger picture. And once you understand that the importance of these things, you would also understand why we attach them. Just a general note, information shared with FilmTT is considered confidential. We do not share your information. We don't share who your investors are. We don't share who lending you the house. We don't share that information with the public. It is all in-house and only used in aggregate for reporting purposes, right? If any part of your budget is spent outside of Trinidad and Tobago, please list that and let us know. And say what percentage of the budget was spent overseas, if it was in post-production, editing, or all these different things, right? So next slide. Right. We're calculating a final budget. So all the estimated figures that we would have calculated before, we're rounding up here and putting them in a final document. So these figures will come from your final budget that the auditor and accountant would have prepared. So these figures must match what is on your budget. Just saying that up front. If it doesn't match, we will send back and say, hi, can you give this another look, right? Because if you calculate your rebates to be 1.28 and on your budget, your rebate is actually 1 million flat, the discrepancy will come up and we'll say, hey, it won't go any further. It will be sent back to do two of us. So just make sure that you match for accuracy and that everybody is on the same page, right? Will you provide FilmTT with 6-month updates of revenue earned by this film? So we asked for this information because part of the reporting on the industry is on the performance of films that have access to rebates, and beyond that, the kind of content that's being made here, the kind of feature-length content that's being made, how is it performing out there? How can we assist? Is there a distribution agent perhaps that we know that can help this film along? How are you performing in film festivals around the world? Have you picked up a distribution agent? This information is important for us to capture how is the industry developing, especially as we encourage the creation of feature-length productions. It's a lot of work and a lot of money to create a feature. So we would love to know, how is it doing, how is it performing? And it's not just about money. Yes, the revenue is fine, but it's also about how is the film being received in international circles? Is the content being received well? Is the genre performing well? So I use the example of a film like Bazuri. Bazuri kind of hit all the genre points in terms of it was a comedy, it was a musical, everybody knows Marshall, everybody knows Carnival. It was a good representation of the kind of content that we can make, and it screened at a number of theaters in the US. And it's good to know that this is where this film is going. Even Hero by Francis Solomon and Imagine Media, Lisa Wickham. Fantastic film. It was at the 2018 Film Festival, ttff, yes. It was the opening film, and that film was shot in different parts of the world, and it's been all over the world. And so, yes, the revenue is cool and it's important, but how is the film being received? That's also what we want to know. So we would love you to share that information with us, which is why we included it in the checklist, in the document. Also, the veterans of the rebate program will know that this form used to be 22 pages long. We have condensed all the rebate documents into 3 pages. We want to make it as independent as possible. The whole purpose of refining the forms was so that you could go on your website, you could download the forms, and you could fill it out. And then you can come and say, okay, I've filled this out to the best of my ability, but I don't know what ABC means. Can you help me? Of course I can help you. But, take a stab at it. It's very, very simple. It's information that you should have before you start filming, right? And after, right? So let's move on. So we have here another table, more math, yay, calculating the final rebates. So this is just all the information that's in your balance sheet laid out very clearly for you. So if you have questions on how to calculate your final rebate, use this format. How much should I spend on location? How much is my qualifying expenditure? This is my flat 35. How much is my qualifying labor? What's my rebate figure? We also in-house, we do check over the rebate figure based on the accounts that you submit to ensure that it is all accurate. And then it goes off to the Ministry of Trade for their audits. And then the ministry they submit back to us a official document that states, we have reviewed this rebate and this is the calculation. This is how much your rebate can be signed off for. It is approved to be signed off for this figure. So just know that whatever you submit in the final document that goes to the ministry, that is the figure that will come back and be signed off on. So ensure that you properly submit everything before it goes off to the ministry. And we do let you know when it goes off to the ministry and when it comes back, because once it comes back, that's it. It then goes to the rebate panel and nothing further can be added or subtracted, right? So let's move on. So just some important tips that we kind of went through already. The provisional certificate can be extended within an 18-month window. After 18 months, you have to submit an entirely new application all over again, and that provisional certificate will be scrapped, right? Please ensure your company is registered BIR and you pay your taxes. Like I said, the rebate panel consists of senior members of BIR, and nobody is signing off on a rebate unless you present a tax clearance certificate and a certificate of incorporation. I will also not be convening a rebate panel meeting unless I have these two things in particular. So please ensure that your business is registered and you're paying your taxes and have your clearance certificate ready. It takes a while to get. So I would suggest that by the time you submit your provisional application, apply for the tax clearance certificate, so that if it takes a while, you have time while you're gathering your final documents to get it in, right? Open a separate bank account for your production for a clean audit. We went through that. You have to submit bank statements. So in order to make sure that the audit is as seamless as possible, and you don't have to redact all your personal banking information for the production, give the production its own bank account. Let everything run through there. If you get funding from there, if you take your own personal money and put it in there, that's fine. It will show up as a deposit into the account. But that is make it as clean and as orderly as possible, because trust me, it will make a very big difference when your accountant has to sift through and say, okay, who spent this $36 on breakfast, which is slightly ridiculous. But if it's in your personal account and they have to separate what you personally spend from what is film production money, that's fine. But you don't want that takes up a bulk of your audited funds, because they have to spend 6 months sifting through, okay, your Amazon cart, your Shein cart, your Forever 21 cart from your production money, because somebody gave you money to make the film, somebody gave you $10,000, you got a grant. You don't want that money being crossed. So keep your personal money separate from your production's money to make your life easier, right? So proof of ownership of the production, please ensure that you are organized. Please ensure that you do have your production documents in order. The registration of your production as its own entity will go a long way for chain of title and for ensuring that you own your production, because if you don't own your production, distribution agreements do become a bit difficult. Like I said, flash drive is better than a DVD. If you want to give me a DVD, I can use a DVD as well. We'll keep it in our library. But I do show the rebate panel the films. They do enjoy seeing them and they enjoy seeing the fruits of your labor, right? And the last thing is registered auditor must review financials to be eligible, right? So yeah, that is how to apply for the rebates. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email, feel free to drop us a line, and we will definitely be available to answer any questions. We have a couple of rebates in the pipeline, and we look forward to getting these productions made. We look forward to seeing more of you apply to rebates and seeing more of you make amazing content and showing you what Trinidad and Tobago is made of. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Regina. We actually have just one or two questions that we could quickly answer before the end. So the first one is, what is the length of the process from, or the estimated length of the process from submission of the docs and the application to having an answer and hearing back from you all?
Hearing back on the provisional certificate or hearing back on payments?
Both.
Two different things.
Yeah,
okay, so from
so
from submission of provisional to application to provisional certificate, that could take about a month. Once everything's in order, sometimes you kind of have to go back and forth on submitting certain things like the certificates of incorporation. But that could take about a month or less once everything is in order. From to payment, it actually depends on when you shoot and when you premiere. So I will use the example, the first production feature to actually be made in a post-COVID world or pre-COVID world is Lavway by Ultimate Events and Tribe. They shot in January of this year and premiered on Carnival Sunday, and they applied for rebate. So they kind of still in their final process phase. They submitted their stuff, and so they were shot in January. So that's like 9 months now. So it really depends on when you shoot and when you submit your final documents. It could take a year. It could take, some people have taken 2, depending on availability of funds and filming. So it really all depends on how quickly you can get documentation together.
Okay, thanks. And then there's one more that I'm seeing on Facebook. And so someone is asking to confirm the rebate is on the final spend, i.e. if the actual spend for qualifying expenses in the provisional certificate budget is greater than the budgeted amount, will the rebate be based on the final spend, including overruns, as long as it is a qualifying expense?
Yes. So what you submit in the provisional is simply an estimate of how much you think you will spend on different things and how much you think your rebates will be. You're not tied or bound to that figure. What you are bound to is your final figure, because your final figure is what will be represented in your accounts, in your audited accounts, and in your audited budget that is prepared, of course, by your auditor. So that's the figure that your rebate is calculated on, what you submit in your final application documents and what is present on your budget. Because that's the figure that is then taken up to the ministry for their audit, and that's what they will report on.
Right, great. Thank you so much, Regina.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us and watching the FilmCo Info Session TT Production Rebate. On behalf of the TTFF team, we hope that you gained some insight into this topic and enjoyed all our live industry events, because this is our last one. Today is our last day. So if you enjoyed this presentation or have any suggestions, please be sure to share your experience with us via email, admin@filmco.org. If you happen to post about it on social media, please tag us in your posts. We like to remain connected to you all. So we wish you all the best and hope you enjoy the last day of the festival, everybody.